So since I'm moving out of my house in the next couple of weeks, I didn't want to leave you guys without a video. So let's talk about some common criticisms of my channel. Now, I do want to say up front, this is not going to be some kind of crazy angry rant video, because I think some of the criticisms are pretty legitimate, and even the ones that aren't are simply misguided. And I think most of you are actually pretty happy with the direction of my channel, seeing as my like-dislike ratio has never been higher on average. Still far below most other YouTubers, but generally in the last 6 months I've covered things most people don't like, and so when I shit on it, you're pretty okay with it. That said, there are some prevailing criticisms, critiques, whatever you want to call them, that keep coming up, and so I want to address some of those again. Let's start off with one that has been around ever since my channel started taking off, that being the "you should be more professional" crowd. Now, this often comes in many different forms, but ever since my Far Cry 6 review, the one I keep hearing come up over and over again is that I should tighten up the script for my videos, or write a script period if the video seems particularly scatterbrained. And this is something I brought up a few times, but I haven't mentioned in a video in quite a while, is that I don't script any of my videos. Yeah, I don't write any scripts. For the first roughly 6 months, I did attempt to write scripts, or at least extensive notes that could function as a sort of pseudo-script. The thing is, that didn't really work out. My videos were too robotic, and combine that with my awful mic quality and lack of any sensical sound mixing, to the point where you couldn't even understand my voice sometimes. The Pinkies and Chainsaw guys are a little scary too, but they only appear a couple of times and are also fairly easy to kill. Pretty weak effort overall on Doom's side. My old videos are completely unwatchable. I realize some of you still enjoy them, particularly my Last of Us 2 ones, which were more like shit posts than actual critiques or reviews. Look, there's flat women, okay, I get it, who don't have breasts. Abby's not flat though. Her breasts are literally shaped like pecs. It is disgusting. She's utterly disgusting. I don't care what you say. You know, you can call me like a vain, misogynist, like shallow type of person. She is hard to look at. And actually that brings me directly to my point, that never at any point since I started this channel did I want to be a professional reviewer, at least in the literal sense. Now, I certainly have no problem with doing YouTube full-time and making enough money to pay the bills, and I have been doing that for about 2 years at this point. That doesn't mean I had any desire to be professional. I don't. And I think a lot of you also understand that the entire appeal of my channel is that I am as genuine and honest with you as I can possibly be. Now, I do have to engage in some self-censorship because of YouTube terms of service, but for the most part, I get across exactly what I want to say in every video I've ever made. And in a lot of cases, people disagree, and I get a lot of hate for that, and that's okay. I'm not going to pretend my Doom Eternal videos are awesome, or even worse, my Suicide Squad review. That was the most hated video I've ever made. And even more recently, my Elden Ring videos also had a shit ton of dislikes. Though in the case of the second Elden Ring video, that was from people who didn't even watch the video. Fun fact, about 70% of the people who clicked on that video stopped watching past the 1 minute mark. So forgive me if I don't take most criticisms of that video seriously. It did have problems, especially given that was my first attempt at a long form format, and I probably could have trimmed it and tightened up certain spaces, and I forgot to bring up serious criticisms I've thought of later. Certainly is not one of my best videos, but I stand by pretty much everything I said. But to get back to what started this, the Far Cry 6 review, which is the most viewed video on my channel, and might actually make it to 1 million views, which is kinda crazy. I never would have thought I'd ever make a video get to 1 million views. That video is not scripted at all. Maybe that comes as a surprise to some people, but all I did was write extensive notes, and everything else is pretty much off the cuff, just based on things I've thought of before I sit down to record. Even though I only had 6 days to make it, and honestly, even now, almost a year later, I have no idea how I managed to make that video in 6 days, given that, like I've said before, I don't get review codes. I've only ever gotten 2, or at least accepted to. I've been offered a bunch for indie games that you guys wouldn't even watch the video, and honestly, I wasn't interested in most of them anyway. But Saints Row is the first AAA, or middleware really, I don't think it's actually AAA, game that I've ever gotten a review code for, and even then it was on launch day, as I said in the video. So for some of you saying that my videos feel rushed, and that is your reasoning for wanting me to write a script, the truth is I don't have time. I have to release these videos while the games are still relevant in the algorithm. I don't have the type of pull where I could make a video a month after the game comes out and people would still watch it. I just don't. Even with 80,000 subs, I'd say less than half of that are truly faithful viewers, and even then there's plenty of vids I've released that have gotten less than a third of my subs to click on it, namely anytime I've ever talked about a 3D platformer. Another criticism that seems to be more rare, but I might as well address it anyway, is the lack of any real editing in my videos. You know, other than just showing some gameplay clips and maybe playing a sound effect, or I guess I've used maybe a handful of reaction memes, if you can call it that, in videos, but for the most part, it's just my voice, background music, relevant gameplay footage, and maybe a clip from one of my streams. Well, the thing is, I have no formal education on video editing software. Pretty much everything I know is based on things I've Googled or just figured out by messing around with Premiere. And honestly, even though I am incredibly lazy, and that no doubt contributes to why, the main reason is more just it fits the nature of my channel. I've been trying to bring back a more honest, highly opinionated side of YouTube that hasn't existed at the very least for the past 5 years, and I feel like that's entirely manufactured. Pretty much all of the most popular old YouTubers were just people giving their opinion. Now, in a lot of cases, they made it entertaining in some way, like obviously the Angry Video Game Nerd, or Spoonie, or JonTron, you know, etc., etc. These are all people who turn criticism into entertainment. Now, of course, what I do is much more straightforward than any of those guys. I just wanted to review video games as brutally honest as possible. Now, of course, this puts my channel in a kind of weird in-between space, with Angry Joe's over-the-top forced anger being on one end of the scale, and then the other end being the more analytical, quote-unquote, objective criticism of Mahler or Matthew Matosis or Joseph Anderson, etc., etc. Now, of course, the difference between me and those guys is they're much more popular than I am, their videos are highly edited and scripted, and the more I think about it, the less accurate this comparison really is. The direction I wanted to take my channel was somebody who legitimately does look at video games and criticizes them from an incredibly cynical lens, which is just my natural lens. This is not a persona I'm putting on, this is legitimately what I think. Unlike channels like Angry Joe, I have never had to fake anger for a video. Every single time it's genuine. Now, some of you might not believe that, but no, I've really gotten that mad over things that most normal people would find pretty trivial. But that's because I love video games. Unlike people who claim they love video games by jerking off whatever the most popular game is released at the time, I've been playing games since I was 5 years old. I've played probably well over 1,000 at this point. And there's game reviewers who have played twice as many games as I have, so again, this is not meant to be a flex. But it has certainly been concerning to me, especially since back in the Gamergate days, that criticism for gaming has slowly become less and less critical, right? And so honestly, I've wanted to make video game content for a long time. I just never really knew how to do it, and I honestly didn't have a PC that could do it until about 3 years ago. And so here I am. I have no plans to ever be professional in any capacity. It doesn't mean that I don't want my videos to have well-structured arguments and examples. Obviously, I still plan to do that, and I do want to make more videos in the same caliber as the Far Cry 6 review, but it is pretty rare that I have that much experience with a franchise where I can come up with several examples off the top of my head to compare to older games. I mean, for Resident Evil, I certainly can, as I played pretty much all of the games, but a lot of times when I review modern games, I don't have extensive experience with the franchise, so it's much more difficult to create a review like that. So to address probably the most popular criticism of my channel, at least amongst regular viewers, they say I never talk about good games, especially not good modern games, because on occasion I'll still review older games from my childhood, or actually used to review some older games I'd never played before at people's request or on Patreon. Honestly, I just couldn't stand to do that anymore after a certain point. My passion for YouTube has dwindled despite my increasing success. So now I pretty much only make videos I want to make for one reason or another. But that said, there certainly is a lot of credence to this criticism. There's certainly been many times that I've wanted to talk about a game, but I feel like I couldn't because I know nobody would watch it. Now you might believe otherwise, but I have the numbers to back it up. Like I already said earlier, every time I've reviewed a 3D platformer, that video has bombed, with the exception of the 2 Ratchet & Clank videos. And even in the case of those vids, the first one released the day that Rift Apart came out, and I gave it a bit of a clickbait title to make people think I would compare the new game to the very first in the series. In the case of the Going Commando review, it got considerably less views than that first one did a year ago, but still pretty good for my channel, so I do appreciate that a significant amount of you are interested, but even then, I think a considerable amount of those views came from people's recommended or the YouTube search. It is certainly much less successful than my lazier videos like these TV show reviews I've been doing this year. Which kind of brings me to another side point. I don't really consider this as a criticism, this is just a suggestion, but a lot of you seem to want me to cover any pop culture, especially really shitty, woke TV shows or movies, and I understand why. I clearly have a anti-SJW audience, whatever you want to call that, right? I'm not surprised by it all. Obviously, in my first dozen videos on my channel, I made those 2 Last of Us 2 shitposts, and I've gotten political many times, even recently, in my videos. But that being said, I still want my channel to focus on video games. These TV shows I've covered have tied into game franchises I care about. Even with the Mortal Kombat movie, even though I'm not a huge Mortal Kombat fan, I've still played a few of the games. The only time I think I've ever covered media that had no relation to video games was that Suicide Squad movie review, which everyone hated pretty much, so I want to keep my videos mostly to video games, and this might just be a contrarian part of me or something, but I hate making content that everyone agrees with. It's such a waste of time. I think a lot of you secretly want me to become like the edgy or right-wing Angry Joe. Or maybe like one of these anti-woke media channels like Quartering or Nerdrotic or Critical Drinker. But those channels already exist. I don't want to be a clone of another channel. Even though my voice maybe is a little bit different than theirs in the sense that I'm a bit more extreme, let's be honest, I would still be constantly compared to them. I just want to review video games and sometimes make gaming is dying style rant videos, right? Which I haven't made one of those in a while, but I do enjoy making them. And I also like talking about games I grew up with that I think are really good. The problem is, and I may have talked about this in a video before, but I don't really remember, is that I can't afford to have too many videos bomb, especially in a short span of time, or it will slowly start to kill my channel. I'll spare you the details of how the algorithm works. I feel like countless other YouTubers have detailed this over the years, and the algorithm's always changing, so some of that information isn't even valid anymore. And so I've been trying to avoid this as much as humanly possible, even to the detriment of my own content. And it has definitely lessened my enjoyment of making content on YouTube. More recently, I actually was working on a video I think a decent amount of you would have liked. I was working on a Resident Evil Code Veronica review. If you've ever seen a video by Tussnakerer or Running Shine, it was kind of similar to that style, where it was a hybrid of commentary and a sort of walkthrough, I guess, where I just kind of go through the whole game, because I just wanted to try a different style. But I never ended up finishing that video for honestly both of the 2 reasons I've already covered in this video. One, my scripted content just isn't that good. Some of you will remember I was working on a 3-hour-long Cyberpunk video. that no doubt would have been one of my most successful videos. It could have been my most viewed video if I had just actually fucking finished it. The problem was, it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good, guys. And then, of course, the second problem being, it's an old game, it's one of the less popular Resident Evil games. So while I'm sure a decent amount of you still would have seen it, there's not a doubt in my mind it would have been much less successful than my Resident Evil 5 review. Even though it definitely favored watch time in the algorithm because it was roughly an hour and a half. I still might finish that video. Let me know if that's actually something you'd want to see, and maybe I will just fucking buckle down and work on that shit. So let's get to the final major criticism of my channel. I honestly shouldn't even bring attention to this because it's just stupid. But of course his final criticism is, I don't even like video games and I'm just a grifter for views. I exaggerate minor criticisms with modern games so that people will click on my videos. This is something people actually believe. And look, I know I call out Redditors a lot, but whether or not these people actually use Reddit, they are entirely, without a doubt, the exact type of people who use Reddit. That sort of Dunning-Kruger, pseudo-psychology, smarmy, bad faith argument type of people. You know, Vosh, essentially. Those are the type of people who want to accuse anyone who disagrees with them as being a grifter, right? And also, please stop saying that negative reviews are more popular than positive reviews. That is absolutely not true for any game that is actually liked by the general populace. Sure, it'll make a video stand out, but that doesn't always mean people will even click on it. Some of my most controversial videos are not even close to my most viewed. My Doom Eternal videos don't even crack my top 20 most viewed videos. Probably not even my top 30. So again, that completely disproves your point. Usually my more popular reviews are ones agreeing with at least a sizable amount of the gaming community, because a lot of people seem to have problems with Far Cry 6. I just emphasized as many as I could think of, while also still trying to be fair to the things I liked about the game. Even though almost all of my modern game reviews have a negative slant to them, even for games I think are decent, generally I focus on the negative more than the positive. That is certainly an accurate criticism. But honestly, as a video game reviewer, that is a really good thing, I would say. Because when I say a game is good, generally, you can be confident that it is a well-made game. It's not going to be buggy, it's not going to be full of politics, it's not going to be covered in microtransactions. I have never recommended a game that has any of those three things as a major flaw. Except maybe Elix 2, that is a pretty buggy game, but it is enjoyable outside of that fact. So anyway, to get back to the grifter claim, and as you can probably tell, this is not the first draft. I actually went on this huge rant in 10 different tangents about how people metaphorically just want to have their dicks sucked. Basically me affirming whatever their opinion is on a game and the wider gaming audience, right? And that's where a lot of the grifter claims come from. The other parts are typically politically motivated, as the left always projects. I know it's kind of one of the tired phrases like get woke, go broke, but this one is definitely more often true than not. And so before I go on yet another non sequitur and irrelevant point, let's just look at the definition of grifter really quick. So Oxford Dictionary defines it as a person who engages in petty or small-scale swindling. Now, Urban Dictionary's definition is much longer and much more emotionally motivated and likely also politically motivated. That website has been compromised for a long time at this point. Just look up Trump derangement syndrome if you want a little bit of a red pill on that. The problem with both of these definitions is that it doesn't really describe what most people mean when they use the word these days. And so honestly, if you want an actually good definition, you can look at Short Fat Otaku's analysis on this. I actually think it's pretty good.
They have no problems with lying, cheating, or stealing. They will say things that they explicitly know to be false, or they will completely abandon the idea of consistency in their pursuits.
Despite him being an insufferable centrist at times that feels like he has to criticize the right as much as the left, even when it makes no sense and doesn't apply and is a false equivalence, but I've already talked about too many other YouTubers this video. I swear I have nothing against these people. The point of being a grifter is that you have something to sell, right? What have I ever sold? Well, you can probably think of one thing, that being Raid Shadow Legends, and I've already admitted to that being a mistake in the past, but at the same time, everyone overreacted for no reason. Nobody actually clicked that link in the video and downloaded the app, because Raid Shadow Legends never contacted me again after that, despite that video getting 100,000 views. And ever since then, and it's been 9 months, by the way, I haven't done a single other sponsorship. Now that's probably going to change in the near future, so just know I've said it in a video ahead of time. I'm probably going to start taking ads because I'm probably going to need the money sometime in the next year. So what else could I possibly be selling to you? Clicking on my videos? Clickbait isn't a fucking crime, and honestly, my videos aren't nearly as clickbaity as the vast majority of other popular YouTube content. The worst I've been accused of is simply just stating an opinion that people don't like, and that's clickbait. Even the more inflammatory ones, like for Deathloop, where I basically said Arcane Studios is dead. Yeah, I was pretty much right. You really think Redfall is gonna be a good fucking game? It doesn't look like one. It looks like another discount Left 4 Dead 2 to join the growing pile of half-assed co-op horde shooter games. Even the Ratchet & Clank title was well over a year ago at this point, so I don't really use clickbait anymore, not in any reasonable definition of the word. But then you get into a whole subsection of closet communists who think it's wrong to make money off of YouTube videos and everyone should only do it for fun. And look, I do miss the days of YouTube where there was no monetary incentive. I think that's where most of the genuine content came from, and as soon as you could make a quick buck off of YouTube, everything started going to shit. That is certainly true, but on the other hand, content has definitely gotten better in terms of actual quality, the editing, the scripting, video effects, etc., etc. That has all gotten much better ever since money was introduced, so it's a double-edged sword, of course. But just know, I am not a grifter by literally any definition of the word. People using that word are just using it to defame right-wing people. That's literally it. I feel like it's just like the term incel, where over half the people using it don't even know what it means. It's just a dog whistle, as they say, but it's not a good dog whistle because I feel like I know instantly what your politics are if you use one of those terms. And the whole point of a dog whistle is that only your team is supposed to know what it means. So how am I a grifter again? I really need some people to actually explain this one, because really nothing makes sense. When I think of a grifter, I think of the quartering. And again, I have nothing against the guy, but he is a man who churns out the most bottom-of-the-barrel content covering news that isn't even news, like fucking Twitter posts, and talks about them for 10 minutes so that he can shill his coffee or whatever the sponsorship is for the video. That is a grifter, especially with the amount of borderline fence-sitting content he has. If you want to hear his real opinions, he actually has a podcast that he does with Count Dankula and Bearing, where he's much more, let's just say, honest, to give you a euphemism. Because again, this is not meant to be a, oh, I'm going to shit on other YouTubers to make me look good video. But unfortunately, it is starting to turn out that way, isn't it? So anyway, to sum up my points in this video, I have absolutely no desire to be professional, and I honestly think that would completely diminish my appeal as a standalone YouTuber and just make me into a lesser clone of a channel you're already watching right now. I don't know why you would want me to be less unique, but again, a lot of people don't even understand what makes something good in the first place, so it shouldn't surprise me. As for the point that I never talk about good games, that is a serious problem. it's not entirely my fault because the game industry has made it so AAA games are mostly mediocre in this day and age, and in a lot of cases are just complete shit. So I have to go out of my way to cover lesser indie games that interest me that I know will get no views. Or I cover some game from my childhood which is very hit or miss as to whether or not it gets views. And I'm definitely still going to do that, but I got swept up in reviewing these TV shows, and so I've only done it a few times this year. I'll try to review at least one or two more classic games that are good that I would recommend to people. And I may go back to finish that Code Veronica review. I do want to hear your opinion on it. I do read comments, I've said this many times, so you might actually be able to convince me to finish the video. And then, of course, we have the I don't even like games or I'm a grifter, clickbaiting people with the most negative opinion I can possibly think of. Which, again, is just stupid. Why would I even bother talking about the positives of a game if I'm just trying to exaggerate how bad they are as much as possible? Again, just idiotic Redditor bullshit from circle jerks, or Discord groups. That's another fucking thing. People keep asking me when I'm gonna have a Discord. I'm sorry, it's just never gonna happen. You're free to start your own fan Discord. Maybe I'll even join it, probably not. But I'm not gonna have an official Discord ever. Discord is literally just a series of echo chambers where people can radicalize each other because if you don't agree with the in-group, you get kicked out, right? And between Discord and Reddit, this is where you get most of the people who hate me, because I stand against the norm. But anytime I feel like I'm giving a real opinion is when I'm happiest on YouTube, believe it or not. If I'm agreeing with everyone else's opinion, like the Halo reviews, or the Resident Evil reviews, or the Saints Row review, that doesn't do it for me. I don't want to be like everybody else. Why the fuck would you want me to be like everyone else? Seriously. Okay, this video has been going on for too long. I can promise you I'll always be honest to you guys as much as I possibly can, because I truly do value that as a character trait both in myself and other people. And hopefully you continue to enjoy my content. I'm never going to sell out just to get more subscriptions. Again, I might do these shitty sponsorships because I need the money, but I'll try to make it more obvious if I actually support the product or not. It's not always up to me depending on what the details are of the sponsorship, but I'll try not to take any that are too strict. And as always, thanks for watching. Do the things the algorithm likes. Hit the bell for notifications even though it doesn't even fucking work apparently, especially not for live streams. And thank you to my patrons. I'll try to actually put some content up on there, especially I might just end up putting that Code Veronica review on there if I don't finish the video. It'll be another audio review like the Horizon Forbidden West one. And that's about it. I'll see you next time, guys.